How hard was the transition from military to the trades, construction?
Going through the Veterans in Piping program made it a lot easier than it probably would have been without it, because I went from one job where I used my hands to another. So it was very easy to relate my current career path with my new career path. I think without that, I probably would have felt a little lost trying to fit into the civilian world. You know, here I went from having somebody tell me exactly what I needed to do for the day to somebody telling me as an apprentice exactly what I needed to do for the day. So that made it a lot easier. It was still a little bit of a culture shock because in the military, things are extremely structured, whereas in the civilian world, things are still structured in the construction industry, but it's a little more laxed.
Tradesmen built America. Not policymakers or desk jockeys, but hardworking, blue-collared men and women. Join me, Roger Wakefield, on conversations with some of the nation's most successful skilled laborers. This is the Trade Talks.
That part right there was kind of difficult for me. I was very like 1, 2, 3, whereas in construction, sometimes it's 1, pause, 2, pause, 3, pause. But I think I had a very smooth transition as far as that went. And I'm very grateful for that because it's difficult for a lot of other veterans. They, sometimes it's really easy to feel lost. So I'm grateful for the Veterans in Piping program being there.
I told you yesterday I was at an event, the Forge now here in Dallas, that does a lot of the same type thing. That they bring in people, and it's not just veterans. They it's open to everybody, but they do a training for residential construction, residential HVAC, commercial HVAC, electrical, and they're getting ready to start doing plumbing. So this is a really neat deal. The VIP program, when it first started out, was pretty much welding.
Yes.
So you're a welder.
I graduated with some weld certs.
Yeah.
When I got to Local 100, I obviously learned a lot of pipe fitting then, because you don't just come in and say, hey, I've got weld certs, let me weld.
I've got a golden arm, let me go to work. Right.
Right.
A lot of welders do that, though.
I think since then it has transitioned and it's got HVAC and plumbing in there. There's a few other programs out there. I'm not sure if they have multi-trade training going on or if it's one thing right now. But I am glad to see that it is expanded into
not just welding.
Things. Right.
You bet.
Don't get me wrong. I loved it. It was great. Are there words I'm not allowed to say?
Oh, you can say whatever you're going to say.
Okay. So, funny thing, whenever I interviewed for the program, the liaison came out and she was there was 2 of us, talking to 2 of us before we went into our interview. And of course, she's in uniform. We were in just nice interview clothes. So it was a little weird for us because we're used to being in uniform too. But she was asking us why we decided to go in there. And I said, great benefits, great pay. That's exactly what I'm looking for right now. And I said, from what it sounds like, I get to make shit with fire. So of course, when I went into the interview, she told them that. But that was a great icebreaker. And welding, I think it's fun. I think I would enjoy it more as a hobby than work, which is why I transitioned over. It's not for everybody. But yeah, I really enjoyed plumbing about my 3rd years whenever I figured that out.
So did you ever go on any commercial jobs as a welder?
No, because I was still an apprentice when I had my welding certs. So usually around your maybe 4th or 5th year, they might let you burn a few rods. But until then, I came in as a 2nd year with some weld certs. I definitely didn't get to do any welding on jobs.
Well, but I mean, even that, you come in with welders that lets them know you at least understand your way around, parts of construction. Welding's, there's not a lot of female welders.
No.
Anywhere. Go ahead.
The first journeyman that I was put with was a female welder. Well, I was put with two. Of course, I was just fire watching then, but
You bet.
To come in and immediately see, hey, there's a female welder on this job site with me. That was pretty awesome.
Yeah, look, and I didn't mean that. I think there needs to be more of them.
Oh yeah.
Again, I had this conversation yesterday. There were, in this graduating class of 40 people, I believe there were 3 females, and I'm like, okay, wait, that's more than 10%, or right at 10%, where normally in the trades it's 1 to 2%, 1 to 3%. So we're getting close to 10%. I'm thinking, okay, wait, this is pretty good. Is welding something women can pick up pretty easy?
I have heard from a lot of welding instructors that women tend to be a lot more detail oriented when it comes to welding, especially
that many times,
especially TIG welding. I've heard a lot of great things from other welders that have said, yeah, I saw this female welder on a job site. She was doing some TIG and it just looked amazing. So I think there's definitely a big opportunity. Well, even in all trades, the way I look at it is there's money to be made. Why can't we do it?
A ton of money.
Right?
I recruit in the trades all the time. I tell them, I don't care what race you are. I don't care what gender you are. It don't matter. There's work that needs to be done. Yes. And I do. I love that. Now, going through the VIP program, how long was the training program there?
We started, we started in January and graduated, I want to say it was June 3rd. I remember random dates sometimes.
Right.
So it was a few months long. Every day in there, 8 hours a day, just welding, just learning how to weld. Well, the first week we did OSHA.
Oh yeah, gotta be safe first. Gotta be safe first. I like that though.
But yeah, it was a lot of fun. We had really good instructors out there at Fort Campbell. So
this video is sponsored by Leak Pro. Go check out leak-pro.com. So take just a second. Tell everybody who you are and what you do. What you do now.
I'm Tanya. I work at Brant in one of the construction technology departments. I run the point layout team. We do things a little bit different than most point layout teams in other companies. But I think the way we do it is very efficient and it's great. And I love learning new things. So over the last year and a half, I've been working really hard to pick up on that, because I think whatever makes our job safer and easier and more efficient for us, it's, might as well jump right into that, learn it, see where we can apply it. Your jobs are going to be faster. They're going to be a lot safer. Apprentices are going to learn to read plans a lot easier when they see these things. Because I know a lot of apprentices that I've seen have trouble reading prints. Whereas if you're looking at something just like that every day, all it takes is repetition.
It's funny, when I was in the union, I taught the blueprint and drawing course. Loved it. But I also, I was the first points person at Brant. I started that division with a total station that we had purchased, GeoShack. And actually, God, I think we bought a used one from Beck, to be honest. I think that we sent it down there, had them check it out. And they went to it and said, look, everything's great. And I went down there and went on the training through Geo. And man, it was like, okay, this is just freaking cool.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because I found out about it on a project that we had done with Beck. It was the Radio Shack, the Riverfront campus. And man, there was a drain that we had missed somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And it was on the outside of a building, which was really weird. And it was a weird shaped building. So Beck came over and said, hey man, y'all got to get over and get this marked and get this in. And said, okay. So, but look, there's no batter boards. There's no nothing. And Randy, one of Beck's engineers, Says I'll go over and shoot it for you. And I'm like, okay. So I'll meet you over there. And we get over there, and he's got a total station set up, and he's moving around, making marks, pinpoints, and comes sets a point in the ground, says the drain goes right there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, how do you know? And he says, well, because I marked it. It's like, yeah, but how'd you figure this out? I said, you didn't pull a tape measure out. You didn't do anything. Now, I'd seen them out doing that before, but I had no idea what they were doing. And he started explaining to me. He says, well, with your northerlings and your easterlings, we can do this and we can do this. We know what points these are, because I just have to go get on a computer, make the point in the middle of that drain where I want it. And I said, and how accurate is it? He says, about within an eighth of an inch.
Mm-hmm.
I said, are you serious? He said, well, really, we go more closer to a 16th. And I'm like, that's nuts.
Right.
So I'm literally going back to the office. They didn't want to use it. They weren't interested in it at the time.
Right. It was scary.
I went to work for Beard Mechanical. I did the plumbing on the indoor water park at Great Wolf Lodge. So the entire 290,000 square feet. And I don't remember how many points we laid out, but I made it my point as the superintendent on the job. I was going to lay out every point. That saved field labor, which makes my job look really, really good, and it makes sure everything is done right.
Mm-hmm.
We figured out how to send it into our CAD department, have them give us the points, explain to the pool company what we were doing and how we were doing it. They thought it was great. The pool company moved 3 points because, they know better.
Right.
The only 3 problems we had on the whole job.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, because I noted them, circled them in red, told to move by Phil and the date. And it was interesting. And you really learn a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So then whenever I went back to Brent, I'm like, guys, look, I've been doing this and you can't beat this. So they're like, okay, let's try it. And we did. And I got to tell you, it was phenomenal. Superintendents loved it because literally I would go out because I'd been in the field forever. I'd go out, shoot points. I wouldn't just shoot the point. I'd shoot like center line of the trunk right at the same northern or eastern it's supposed to be at.
Mm-hmm.
Then I could go out and shoot the next one, put a flag there. And now I could walk in with paint, lay out the entire dig. And they're like, how'd you do that?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, with a tool.
Right.
So it was pretty cool. And we had one person, me, one tool. You've grown that division, haven't you?
It's definitely grown quite a bit. We have 6 people throughout the state, but as I said before, Brant does it a little different than most companies. Our team doesn't go out and do the layout on most projects. On small scope things we do, and we still go out and we verify control for all of the projects that we work on, but we like to make them self-sufficient because we have so many projects throughout the state that if they were all waiting on the 6 of us, we would never make a pour.
You bet.
But what we do is, you said you had training from GeoShack. So we do in-house training. We set them up with either a robotic total station or a GNSS, depending on the job. We like to use the GPS units in underground. It's so much easier.
Oh, yeah.
Because you don't have to worry about, well, now somebody's standing in front of my robot.
Right. It don't matter.
Or, hey, that dirt pile wasn't there 5 minutes ago.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and people don't get that when you're like, hey, guys, I need y'all to move.
Yeah, I got to be able to see from one.
They're like,
one
what
thing to
I'm
the
doing?
other.
It's like, yeah. Or the worst, the reflective vests.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, your total station.
It's gotten a lot better.
Good.
They have some features that kind of help with that, but it still happens. It's bound to until they get something to where it only locks onto that. But,
so do y'all lay out every point on every floor?
yes.
Because that's what we started to. First, it was underground.
So, yeah, we go in, use the GPS on underground, and then if we can continue to use the GPS, we'll use it. If we're at the highest point throughout the building, good to go.
You bet.
There's a little less accurate than a robotic total station, but we have had a lot of great success with all of our embeds and our sleeves. If it's a critical sleeve, obviously go over there hand lay it out
Oh,
just
yeah.
to verify.
Oh, I never did that. I was like, look, I got this. My point's dead on. Don't you worry about it.
Well, like I said, with the GPS, there's a little less accuracy on it. So we're like, look, if you got a real tight sleeve in this wall, pull it, lay it out, put it in there, pull it just to make sure.
Check and double check.
Yeah. But yeah, we
probably would have been smart for me.
But it's come to like, if we have thousands of inserts on a deck, as soon as one portion of the deck opens, on average, if you have 2 people out there, you can have one person lay out about 350 inserts on average. And then the person behind them will just come in and install them. If they're doing it by themselves, it drops down to about 150 to 200.
Yep.
Just because they have to go back and forth. But still, how many people do you know can drill a hole and set an anchor 350 times in one day? That's a fast apprentice right there.
No, it is. And we had started doing that too, started putting in all the inserts. That way, it's like, man, look, what more can we do with this? And we just kept, okay, let's take on this, let's take on this, let's take on this. Man, it's good stuff. It started out with underground, then it went to sleeves, then it went to inserts and embeds, and it's like, man, there's nothing we can't lay out with this.
Right. So our department, like I said, we do training. It's about 2 to 3 days, depending on the person. We like to have 2 people, so that way, if somebody's sick, we prefer if one of them is supervision, but as you know, on busy job sites, that's not always
Sometimes
available.
Your apprentice is your supervision.
Just because we want them to be aware of the process and any issues that they might come across. We have a system where we do virtual troubleshooting with them as well. So they can call us, we'll remote into their tablet and walk them through any steps that they forgot. And in that 2 to 3 day training, we don't expect them to know everything. They're not going to retain every single thing that we've gone over, but they'll retain enough to where they can get themselves almost set up. Maybe if you get stuck at a step, call us. We'll walk them through it, and then they're good to go. And after a couple of weeks, they're like, okay, I got this. I'm good. I don't need any help. I just need my point files.
You bet.
So we also create the point files, set them up with a background, their CSVs, and we have a specific way that we name everything so that it matches. It's very, very user friendly. There's never a guessing game on, well, I think this layer is turned on and it goes to this floor. No, right. It's labeled system floor each time.
Yep.
So, and it takes that away from the modeler's responsibility so that they can focus more on the model. We break it down into different departments. And like I said, it sometimes it might seem like that's a big game of telephone, but we have a very fluid system. It's great. And we use probably over 90% of our embeds, which a lot of companies don't have that percentage just yet because the pour is always getting pushed up. But
oh yeah,
we stay on top of it. We asked the field teams for the pour schedule 7 days before that pour. We're sending out points. 3 days before that, we're bugging the modelers saying, hey, is this ready for us?
You bet. Just
so that we can stay ahead of it and get them the most accurate points that they can.
That is neat. It's turned into a neat process. How was it going through apprentice training program?
I was fortunate enough to have a really great crew who was willing to teach me everything that they knew. And I loved that because I love learning. I love seeing the next opportunity pop up, and I'm going to jump on it. So I do know there is a lot of women out there who kind of struggle through their apprenticeships because they'll come up on somebody who's like, well, I don't want to teach you.
You bet.
You don't need to be.
You're not going to learn. You shouldn't be here. No. Isn't that crazy?
It is. It's wild to me. But the way that they taught me is the way that I teach apprentices now. They taught me because the more I knew, the less they had to hover over me and double check all my work, which to me, that's efficiency.
You bet.
If you know exactly what's going on, I can let you run with it. Maybe at the end of the day, we'll go over whatever you did. If you have questions or you don't think you did something right, we'll look at it. But for the most part, that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to teach you. So, like I said, I was fortunate to have a really great crew to work with, and I was with them for about 3 years.
Oh, the same crew pretty much?
Pretty much the same crew. A few people came and went, but yeah, I had the same crew for about 3 years.
How about the training center? I'm assuming you were the only girl in class.
Actually, like I said, at Fort Campbell, we had me and one other female.
Okay, in the VIP.
In the VIP.
What about the Apprentice Training Center here?
We both came here.
Oh, really?
Yes. And there was another female in the class. She's a fitter. So all three of us graduated together. So that was more representation than I thought I was going to have.
That's more than I've seen when I was down there.
Yeah, it was. I think right now we're up to probably around 10 to 15 women in the local.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a pretty good number.
That is. Most
of them are apprentices.
But 10 to 15 women, that's probably about 1%.
Yeah.
It's because the last time I checked, the union had over or Local 100 had over 1,000 members.
Yeah, something around there. Yeah. I have to double check. Like I said, the last one I didn't get to go to because
I get it. I get it. Women in the trades, how do they normally do?
So it goes one of two ways. You either get the ones that follow the stereotypes, show up, they don't really want to do anything. They're like, hey, come help me.
Yeah.
And then the rest of them are like, no, I don't need your help. I'm here to rock this.
Yeah.
I have to work twice as hard as you, which that's the majority of what we get. There's a small percentage of our small percentage that, kind of follows the stereotype. But the rest of them, they work hard. Some of them, I've heard my apprentices in class, they say, yeah, this female showed up on our job site today and she's just working circles around us. We don't even know what to do.
Yeah, up your game, bud.
I'm like, well, she has to.
Oh, no, I meant them. They said, we don't know what to do. You better up your game. And it's funny because in plumbing, the highest ranking plumber in Texas is a female. Mm-hmm. Lisa Hill, the executive director of the Texas State Board of Plumbing Examiners. Mm-hmm. Diane Villarreal used to be the chief plumbing inspector in Dallas. There's really, Mary Conger, it teaches construction ed or continuing ed for plumbers. She's also an engineer and an instructor over at Dallas County College, something like that. I don't think they call it county anymore. It's Dallas College or whatever. But women normally work a lot smarter, more detail oriented. I try to teach guys that it's like, look, I'm telling you, if you're working side by side by a woman, you better up your game because she's going to work smarter than you and outperform you, whether you realize it or not. And it's not fair to be put in that situation for women, but I think most good women put themselves in that situation. They're like, I'm going to outperform because I feel like I have to. When I got into the union, I came in from open shop. I had worked open shop for 17 years. And I got in the union, they got names for people that come into the union from open shop. I was a rat. We'll just leave it that way. And that's what I did. I came in, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to have to outperform y'all every day. Mm-hmm. And it didn't take long, about a year maybe. And then I had built that reputation. Look, when Roger shows up, he's going to work and you're going to get stuff done. And I love the fact you talk about training your apprentices. Because I think that's one thing that I did that helped me. It helped me grow really fast because they'd give me an apprentice and I would make sure I train him well.
Right.
And I say him, always had guys. I don't know that I ever had a girl apprentice.
I don't think I have either.
Yeah. But it wouldn't have mattered. I'd have treated just like I do everybody else. Hey, I got a job for you and you're going to do it and you're going to learn it and you're going to learn it right. But, I noticed a few years later, all these apprentices I had been training are now foreman superintendents. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, look, you guys are doing really, really good. But I think it goes back to the training and how they're trained and the upfront, I call it an upfront contract. Here's what I expect from you. I'm going to show you how to do this. If you have any questions at all, ask. But then once I show you, you do it right each and every time you do it. If you're enjoying the Trade Talks, hit that subscribe or follow button, which helps us produce this awesome blue-collar content absolutely free. And now, back to the episode. Most of them did pretty good at it. Every now and then you get those that don't. It's like, oh, okay, just go dig a hole. I don't even care where. Just go dig a hole. Going through the union, the classes down there. How are the other students with you? How were they? Not are.
Most of them, well, in my third year, I switched over to plumbing. There's a big difference between
Plumbers are much nicer.
Between plumbing apprentices and pipe fitting
You
apprentices.
Plumbers and welders are just, they are with our pipe fitters and welders. They're just,
But even when I was still in the pipe fitting classes, like I said, I had a great crew, and coming straight out of the military, I was show me how to do it, I'm going to do it. So I picked up a lot very quickly. And so when we were in our classes together,
you looked pretty good.
I mean,
you knew how to do the stuff.
Right. I was right there with them. When I first came in, I definitely felt like I was going to be behind because I skipped my first year and went straight into my second year. So I didn't have that year and a half of actual construction experience that they had, being a PAT and then their whole first year. So I felt like I had to play catch up. But it helped me because I paid attention to everyone, what they were saying to do, why they were doing it, and I asked questions. I think that's a big thing with male apprentices.
They're afraid to ask. They don't want to look stupid.
Afraid, yeah, yep. They're kind of afraid to ask. Whereas me, I'll ask too many questions just to make sure that I'm doing it exactly how you want me to do it. So, and with my team now, 50% of our team is still 6 months in. So, and I tell them, ask a question, ask any question. If you get stuck, that's why the other three of us are here. We're supposed to guide you. Don't think that just because you don't know something that you can't ask. You're never going to find out that way. Or you're going to create bad habits because you think you're doing it correctly.
And you're messing stuff up. Yeah.
So.
I like that. No, I really do, because everybody tells me all the time when they get in trades or want to, when they reach out, they're like, look, I want to get into plumbing, but I don't know anything about it. That's why you get in.
Right.
You get in to learn. You bet. and I mean, even if it's not an apprenticeship, even if you work at an open shop company.
Well, I still consider
that. Yeah, no, I get it. No, and I agree with you. But a lot of people, when they hear the word apprenticeship, it's like, okay, I've got to go to the union. And I came up non-union, joined the union after 17 years, and God, then was union for another 24 years. So questions are what it's all about. Right. Knowledge. You've got to learn. Most tradespeople, and you're doing different because you've learned new things and done different things. Most tradespeople, I've had this conversation with almost every journeyman, every entrepreneur, anybody with a license that's been in here. Normally, we get into the trade. I got in to become a plumber. Once I became a plumber, I stopped learning. Like, okay, let me go plumb. I'm a plumber. I know.
That's sad.
It is. But I'm telling you, 98% of licensed electricians, plumbers, and HVAC techs stop learning. They'll go to continuing ed. They go because they have to. They don't want to learn anything. They don't want to pay attention. They just want to say, look, I got 6 hours to get through. Just let me get through it. And I used to be a continuing ed instructor down at the hall. And I mean, some guys want to pull off their iPad and sit there and play Candy Crush. And it's like, dude, come on, put that up. And they're like, well, I'm not learning anything. No, because you're trying to play games. You ain't here to learn anything.
I will say I was on my phone during the last one. I'll admit this, but that's because I was looking things up as we went.
Yeah, no, and I get that. So are you a licensed plumber then?
Yes.
Okay.
I actually just did continuing ed 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So
is Dennis still an instructor or continuing ed instructor? Who teaches continuing ed now?
This time it was Brian Morrow and Othan
Okay.
I'm going to butcher his last name, so I just won't say it.
Well, that's good. Brian used to work with me. I believe if we want to grow, we've got to learn.
Right.
And that's why I like the idea about asking questions. Okay, so your first 3 years, you're an apprentice. You're pretty much with the same crew. Then you move out to do something else.
Yes. So I was actually supposed to graduate in 2020. Well, I still graduated.
That's fixing to say, yeah.
Still graduated.
You
but
graduated somewhere.
We did our ceremony.
Yeah,
a year
over a Zoom
later.
call or something. Yeah.
But that year, I had my first layoff because I requested it to go take care of some personal stuff. And then the next year, I'm going to tell myself, the next year, I went and worked for another company because work hadn't picked back up because everything was still kind of shut down. I went to work for a family company.
And my thought, and most union people say, look, you got to eat. You got to feed your family.
Right.
So most people don't worry about that.
Well, I've also known them for 20 years.
Before you were in the union.
20 years.
Yeah.
So.
Because I've known them longer than I have you, and they need help. No, I get that.
And I learned so much with them. I am so grateful that I got the opportunity to do that. And I was with them for about a year and a half until some other things happened and they had to shut down. But in that year and a half, I learned how to be a plumber. I did a lot of service work that we talked about, did a little bit of hotel remodeling. That was great. A little bit of new construction, like on a smaller scale, and some house renovations as well. So there was so much that I learned while I was there. And I'm very grateful for them for being patient enough to teach me. But then after that, I came back and I started working with Brent.
I think getting out, look, I've told people, I started out it was a commercial remodel. I've done commercial, I've done residential, I've done industrial, I've done remodels, I've done service, I've done new construction. I've been non-union, union, and non-union. And I love it because I've learned so much about plumbing that I can talk to anybody and everybody about it.
Right. Makes you a well-rounded plumber.
You bet. And it does, because you believe it or not, you learn things at that smaller company that help you today. Mm-hmm. Because it's like, well, wait, do y'all understand this? And it's really funny. And I love that, because I remember when I first got in the union, we were building Fujitsu over off George Bush. And they had this big covered area with probably 100 picnic tables in it. And, we'd all go in there and eat lunch. And I remember being in there for lunch one day, and a plumber sat down next to me. And we were working in the same area, hanging some pipe down in the basement. And I remember him, he looks over at me, he says, oh, by the way, he said, man, I'm getting out of here about 1:30. I said, okay. I said, well, I got some stuff I can do. And he said, I got to go home because I've got a plumber coming to the house. And I'm like, what? And he says, I've got a plumber coming over. And I'm like, what for? He says, I've got a toilet that's running.
Because he only knew commercial?
I said, dude, you're a plumber. You're a union you graduated from the union, right? And he's like, yeah. And you can't fix your toilet? He says, they don't teach us that.
No.
And I'm like,
but YouTube is a great tool.
Oh, I make lots of videos there. I know. I love it. I love it. But there wasn't YouTube back then. There wasn't. We didn't have it back then. But it blew my mind that, when I got in the trade, I wanted to become a plumber. I wanted to become a great plumber. And to have a plumber sitting next to me, a licensed plumber, sitting next to me, he's going to the house because he's got a plumber coming. I'm like, Has it changed? Do they teach y'all how to? That's a no. Not really. Okay.
Not really.
No, it's good. I get
Not
that.
really.
I had I don't remember which course it was, but I taught one that had a section of a book where you talk about toilet repair, water heater repair, and you talk about it in a book.
We do have a service class. My buddy Sean teaches it. So there is a class going on. They learn how to run sewer machines. They learn how to look at toilets and diagnose them and all that kind of stuff.
I tried getting her to do that 5 or 6 years ago, 6 or 8 years ago. Remember when I started my company, Texas Green Plumbing, I was union.
Right.
I started non-union, but then I'm like, hey, look, they're like, well, we're going to build a training center. We're going to make a new, amazing training center with, are y'all still over in Garland or on
Nope.
I-30?
We have a new training center.
Okay. So they were talking about it 8 years ago, 9 years ago.
Right. Yeah. I first heard about it.
It just never
when I
happened.
came in.
Yeah. And I was like, guys, I need this. I need service plumbers. And I would hire apprentices. I'd send them down to the hall to sign up. After I became a member, they'd go in and they're like, I'm here to sign up. It's like, okay, here's what we do. And they're like, yeah, but I want to be a service plumber. Like, well, we don't do service plumbing. And it's like, wait,
we're looking for service plumbers.
I just got hired by Roger. And they're like, yeah, no, but I was the first service plumbing company to sign up in the union, Local 100. So yeah, I think the union could own the world if they did things right. They've got all the people, all the training, great benefits, great pay. There's a million good things about it.
Right.
But they don't want to grow. It's what it looks like from the outside. I'll say that. I'll say that. I tried to get the union to work with me. If you look at their growth pattern over the last 10 or 15 years, it's like a flat line. May have gone up just a little bit, but if that was a business I was running, I'd have fired whoever's running it and say, look, we're in growth mode. We got to grow. And I think that the union, man, there's so many good things about it. I would love to have the president of the UA come in. I'd love to have the president of the IBEW come in, the president of the sheet metal workers, the president of the elevators, escalators union, and just one at a time like this. Look, let's sit and talk. Man, y'all are on a great thing. Why don't you share it with the whole world? Because I do. I believe the union is a good thing. I just think they could do so much more to help so many more people. And I truthfully think, I remember when I first started doing YouTube, when I first reached out to the United Association about a sponsorship, I said, look, I'm a plumber. I talk to a ton of plumbers.
Our poker night is all plumbers.
Do I?
So a lot of plumbers too.
Do I know?
So the poker night I go to is all plumbers.
Yeah, and they're good people.
Right.
They're good people. But my thing is, I want to help people get into the trades, become better tradesmen, eventually start their own businesses, and then learn how to use networking and social media and things like that to grow it. So to me, getting these people in would be like, hey, I talk to about 10 million people a month. Let's tell this many people the opportunity out there.
Right.
And I remember my YouTube coach, because I showed him the graph that I saw where it wasn't growing. And he looked at it and he's, thinking how many people watch me and how many people engage and how many people do this. And he's like, Roger, you can double the size of the union in about 5 years. And I'm like, I like that. It's just never happened.
Well, I think a lot of people don't know the extra opportunities that come after the apprenticeship.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many resources that the UA has.
The UA University online.
Right.
Man, I used to love that.
There's so much out there.
Construction management, man. I'm like, I'm in. Let's go.
So I teach first year apprentices in my soldering and brazing class. And on our first night, I go over, we do the basic introductions, but I also ask them where they want to go after their apprenticeship. Well, they don't know yet. They're like, what? I'm just going to be a journeyman. I'm like, okay, well, do you want to go into supervision? Like, is that your goal? Are you trying to become a master plumber? What are your goals right now? Most of them are about in that range. And I said, well, do any of you want to get into, in the BIM side, or maybe construction technology, or this or that. And they're like, what are you talking about?
You bet.
So I make sure I go over all the different opportunities that they have after they graduate, because we're going to need those people.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get me wrong. We're going to need people installing. We're going to need supervision for them, but we're also going to need the other side of it.
And that other side of it's going to grow a whole lot faster.
It is. It is.
The world's changing.
It is.
And man, it's a trip.
Well, so then, we have, like I said, the first night, it's pretty much a discussion. We talk about the different opportunities, and they're like, oh, well, that sounds really cool. Maybe I want to do that. And I said, well, tonight you're going to say, I want to be a foreman. I want to be a superintendent. Tomorrow you might say, well, I want to get into modeling. It's going to change multiple times throughout your apprenticeship.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to know right now. But what you do need to do is find out what's out there. Don't think that you have one path and it's a straight line right now. Figure out, okay, well, I like doing this, so maybe I can find something in the trades that deals with that. I like working with computers, or I like designing. I like doing this. There's so many opportunities out there. And I really harp on that throughout it to make sure that they understand everything that they can do. So there's just so many opportunities.
I know, and I agree with you. You know what's really neat? I remember have you gone to the instructor training program yet?
I have not.
Okay. So
there's so many slots each year.
Yeah.
I think we're trying to have people finish up before we send new people. Mm-hmm. So this is only my second year teaching.
Okay.
So.
And it was probably my second year that I finally got to go. It was really neat. But when I first walked in that first year, Local 1, New York.
I've met some of them.
They're a different breed.
They are.
They are a cut above, at least back then. They come in, they look alike. They're dressed in slacks. Their shirts match different colors every day.
Very intense and professional.
Yeah. I love those words. Intense and professional and serious. There's a lot of instructors there that are there because there's a lot of beer drinking going on,
mm-hmm.
a lot of great food, and they pay you while you're there.
I'm not gonna lie, the UA puts on some pretty good parties.
Oh, they do. Oh, I've been to some of the biggest ones. I haven't been to the biggest one there, whatever it is now. But yeah, I was in San Diego a few years back, and the day the conference I was at ended, the UA was starting their conference, the MCAA conference, the next day. And I knew a lot of people there, so man, I went over there and I'm just like, and they're like, anything you want to eat, anything you want to drink, we got it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, man, it was a trip. It was a trip. That's the first time I met William Hyatt, the former president, and man, just a great guy. And I mean, personal attitude, he wanted good things to happen. And it was really, really cool. The union, the instructor training program, though, there are some unions that show up like, look, professional, intense. We're here to change lives.
Mm-hmm.
I love seeing it. Local 1 blew me away.
Right.
I mean, when they walk in, you're like, man, these guys are here. And not that a lot of other locals aren't there to learn. I wanted to learn. I wanted to be like them.
Right.
I'm like, look, I want to be the best freaking instructor ever.
Mm-hmm.
Man, to see them do it and the attitude and the dedication that they come in with, it's phenomenal. And I really think every instructor group should look at that and say, look, this is what we need to be living up to, because they set a standard that
absolutely
a lot of people don't. So anyway, that was cool. There's one particular instructor first year with me, John Cullen, out of Local 1, and he told the neatest story, because I always ask, how'd you get in the trades? Why'd you get in the trades? Stuff like that. And I asked him that. He said it was because of one of my best friends. I said, really? I said, me too. He says, well, he said, when I was growing up, he said he'd walk over to one of his best friend's house to walk to school together, or go to school together. And so that when he'd get there, his dad would always come downstairs in a nice suit with a briefcase and, head out the door to go to work. And said, after a while, he finally asked his friend, he said, well, what's your dad do? So he's a plumber. It's like, he's a plumber. So that's not what I would expect from a plumber. And it may not have been a suit. It may have just been dressed really, really sharp. But, and I want to say it's a suit, though, because I want to say, like, he dressed nice, put on his top coat and his hat, and grab his briefcase and walk out. And he said, wait, your dad's a plumber? And he said, yeah. He says, he goes in like this. He's very proud of what he does. He goes in like that. He puts on his coveralls and works. And at the end of the day, takes them off and comes back home. He said, and I knew right then I wanted to be a plumber. I wanted to be a professional like that. And I'm like, man, I love that. I think there's so much pride in the trades. But I think that we've got to keep focusing on that pride. Because I think that I think a lot of people get in the trades right now just to make money. It's the only reason. They don't want to be a plumber, don't want to be a pipe fitter, don't want to be a welder. They just want a job.
Right.
I just want to make a paycheck. I want those great benefits you're talking about. Mm-hmm. That's all I want. If more people got in saying, look, I want to be the best. I want to look like Local 1. I want to get in and I want to be the very best. I want to come in every day and say, like, man, I'm going to look good. I'm going to work good. I'm going to put in 8 hours work. I'm going to collect 8 hours pay, and then I'm going to get out of here. How do we teach apprentices? How do we teach people getting in the trades, any trades, to come in with that mindset?
It's a good question. So the way that I go about my class is I have them start out doing a little bit of soldering. And on that first solder joint that they do, I'm like, do you like that? Do you think that looks good? Is that something that you would want to put on a job site? They're like, no. I'm like, that's okay right now. What I need you to do is work towards creating something that you're proud of. Because otherwise, why are you here? Mm-hmm. If you're just here to collect a paycheck, you're not going to succeed. You'll just flatline. Like, you may put out a decent product, but if you don't take the time to find out what part of this makes you feel prideful about your job, about putting your name on something, then, like I said, you're just going to be stagnant. But if you figure out what type of person you want to be, so you don't have to know that right now, but you need to at least work towards that. You need to figure out, okay, do I want to sit here on and off the bench all the time, or do I want to be out there? I have a job every day that I want it.
You bet. I've had that same conversations.
I'm like, that's the difference between the people who take pride in their work and the people who are here to collect a paycheck. Do you want people to know your name and pull you from a list if you're ever on it? If you're ever on it? Or do you want to be just the next person that goes out? I'm like, well, I never thought of it that way. Like, you need to think of it that way. Mm-hmm. Because the better reputation you have, the more valuable you are. The more valuable you are, the more work you're going to have. More opportunities you're going to get. I'm like, you can't make any of these things happen that you say you want to happen. Like, I want to move up. You can't move up if you don't have that mentality of, okay, I need to take pride in my work. I need to make sure that I'm putting out a good product, and I need to make sure that I'm teaching the next person how to do the same. Mm-hmm. So I think it just comes down to, you got to have a conversation with them, figure out what they want in life, what their next goal is, and then explain to them how they need to get there. And let them know there's going to be bumps in the road. as long as you figure out how to get around them, you'll make it. You'll get to where you want to be.
Soldering and brazing, that's second year, right?
First.
Okay. First semester or second?
This year I had a pipe fitters the first semester, and I had plumbers the second semester.
And I like that because then it gets them in. Look, burning stuff up school.
Making shit with
fire. And the neat thing about it is, I'm trying to remember if it was beginning blueprint reading and drawing, or I did that. I did math. I did a couple of things. But I loved getting the first year apprentices in. Some of them loved me. Some of them hated me.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely a love-hate relationship.
It is. The ones that slept in class or pulled the phone out, they hated me. The ones that wanted to learn really great, most of them loved me, except for Ricky. Ricky went on to the Apprentice competition, national, and did great. But I used to set my students in alphabetical order. That way I could just literally pull out my roster. I could just look at the room and be like, okay, they're not here. They're not here. They're not here. Well, Ricky's last name was Young. And Ricky's like, I want to sit on the front row. So I can't let you. I need you way back here. And he did not like that. But he made it work. He was really good. But when I had first year apprentices, I'd do the same thing you did. I'd say, okay, how many of y'all want to be a good plumber? And, they raise their hand, or pipe fitter, welder, or whatever. They'd raise their hands. Okay. How many of y'all want to move up and be a foreman? And you get about half the hands go down. They're like, I just be a plumber. Okay. How many of y'all want to be a good superintendent? And you may have to explain to them, some of them, they hadn't even been out on the job yet.
Right.
So you start talking about the levels. And, some of y'all could even move up and be a project manager, director of operations. There's a lot of different things you can do. And then I'll always say, well, how many of y'all want to own your own company one day? And almost all the hands would go back up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, look, y'all have growth mode. You've just got to learn how to do the things that are going to get you there. So I enjoyed that. I also used to teach them a deal and say, look, you're going to get 3 raises this year. Get our normal 2 raises and the cost of living raise. Starting right here, your first year, each year, pick one of those and say, when I get that raise, I'm going to put another $1 into my 401k.
Mm-hmm.
And do that throughout your training program. Because then by the time your 5th year, when you graduate, you're putting $5 an hour, $10,000 a year in your 401k. And I had a program on one of my computers that already showed it where, it's $1, it's $2, it's $3, it's $4, it's $5, and all the way down. And I'd do it at like a low interest rate, like 5%, something, and do that all the way down. And I'd show them, look, if you stay in 35 years and get your full pension, you can also have $1 million
mm-hmm.
in your 401k. And they're like, wait, what? It's like, I'm going to teach you how to be a millionaire right here, first night. But this is what it takes. I doubt anybody ever did it.
Right.
But, they knew about it.
Well, even if just one did it.
If just one did, you bet.
So that's another thing I like to talk about with them on the first night. I'm like, how many of you can take a month off right now and be fine? None of them raise their hand.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, look, I'm not a financial advisor by any means, but there's small steps that you can take now to set yourself up for success in the future, to where if for some reason you needed to take 6 months off, you can do that and not panic.
Yep.
And I'm like, it may not seem like it's going to happen right now because we have work, but that's not always the case. You need to be prepared for the times where we don't have work. And I said, even if all you can do right now is a few dollars, put a few dollars aside every paycheck. And then when you can do a few more, add it, keep going, keep going, keep going. So the worst thing that you can do is not be prepared. There is this little financial audit podcast that I follow, And I love this thing that he says, not having an emergency savings is an emergency.
Mm-hmm.
You need to build that up. And, I'll talk to them again on the first night and just say, look, if you're not good at saving, I used to be not good at saving, and I'm still not perfect with it, but
Not me either.
I do the best I can, and there's just, even if you take small steps at a time, you'll get there. You just need to start preparing now, especially if a lot of I think most of my class this semester is a little bit older, so some of them are married, have some kids. Like that's a big deal, especially if you're the sole provider for your household. Right now, that's kudos to you, because I don't think I could do that by myself. I would just be in a panic all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But even $20 a week for a year. Okay, you have about a week that you can take off. That's better than 0 days.
You bet.
It's so much easier going to work when you know that you don't have to be there that day. Like, you have a backup plan. And then after that, you start saving for trips. I'm all about, hey, you need to take a break.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Everybody should treat themselves every now and then. It takes the stress away. And a lot of people don't think of it that way. They're like, no, I need to be working all the time. I'm like, well, if you're working all the time, you can't step back and take care of yourself. There's so many people in the trade these days who put off taking care of an injury because they just can't.
No, I see it.
That's why I actually had a hernia probably for about 1.5 years. I didn't know it was a hernia. I just thought my belly button hurts sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever I got the opportunity, I took care of it. And now, fortunately for me, I'm in the position to where I don't have to wait. I'm just walking around with a crutch right now. I was able to take care of that and continue working, thankfully. Even if I didn't, I would have been able to handle it now. In my 3rd year, I stopped counting the extra money after that until I graduated. I just based it off of my 3rd year income, and I stayed that way for a while.
Good for you.
And it was great. Did I save all of it? Not as much as I should have. But I took the time to go visit my friends that are still in the Army, take little trips here and there, and I was so much less stressed. It was great. So I think apprentices really need to focus on that a little bit more. Maybe even just take like a financial class.
Financial Peace University,
Right.
Dave Ramsey. It's a great start. 9 weeks or something. It's not.
9 weeks is a lifetime to apprentices right now.
Oh, no, I get it. But man, it can make a difference in the life. So it's really pretty neat. When you came out of high school, you didn't go straight in the trades.
No. Day after my 17th birthday, maybe 2 days after my 17th birthday, I think it was on a weekend, I went to the recruiting station and I signed up to join the Army. I had to wait a year until I was 18. So, and I left 3 weeks after I graduated. I was gone. Now, at the time, I probably could have gotten some kind of sports scholarship, but I'm from East Texas, and I was like, you know what? I'm out of here. I'm gone. And that was, at the time, probably the best thing for me. I don't think I was ready for college, and I was very aware of that in the moment. I'm like, if I go to college, I think I'm going to fail. It's just not for me right now. And I'm glad that I was self-aware enough to realize that, because I would have just ended up in debt.
A lot of debt. Yeah.
So
why the Army? Why the military? Why choose that?
It was an opportunity that presented itself, which is kind of how I've ended up everywhere I've been so far. The Army recruiter was the first one that I met. And so I was like, okay, this sounds good. I get to go places. I get paid.
See the world.
I have benefits, and I can do cool stuff. You know, as a
Blow
kid,
stuff up.
as a kid right out of high school, like that's great. That's all I needed. So I did get to see a few places. I met some great people. That's probably the best part, is all the people that you get to meet. But I'm very glad that I went that route instead of college. And if I hadn't gone that route, I don't know, but hopefully I would have found a trade at that time. But it's unheard of out there.
Oh, yeah.
I had to fight just to get into my shop class in high school because girls.
Right. Yeah.
I still did it.
We got to fix that.
I think it's different now, but at the time, you know, that I saw that, hey, these guys are making all this stuff. They're out there making tiny houses.
You
I want
bet.
to do that.
I want to build one.
I still didn't get to do as much as I would have liked to in that class, but the fact that I got into it, that was like great for me. So
Pretty cool.
mm-hmm.
How long were you in the military?
I was in for 5 years.
Okay.
Got out in 2016. The last few months of my contract is whenever I did the VIP program, because it's part of their transition now. You do all these classes before you get out to make sure that you understand how to write a resume, how to do an interview, things like that. Make sure you're kind of lined up and ready to go. It's not perfect for everyone, but for those who find opportunities immediately after, it's life-changing. So
Pretty cool. Well, thank you for your service.
thank you.
All right. So this has been good. If you could go back to the day Tanya graduated and she's getting ready to go to the military, and talk to little Tanya, she walks out of that door the first day after graduation, and you're standing right there on the sidewalk or front porch and say, hey, let me talk to you. What would you tell yourself?
Buy some property. Yeah, I do regret that there was nobody to tell me to invest in any kind of property or anything like that. You know, I could have 10 acres. I just bought my first acre. So
Good for you. Good for you. I just bought my first 10.
see, it's going to grow. Buy property and travel more. So I did get to travel with the military, but at the same time,
You're working.
and I was very young. So the places that I did travel, I just partied. And while I think that's great to do when you're young, you have fun, you meet all kinds of people, there's also a level of responsibility that you haven't acquired yet. And I think saving, investing, and traveling, that's probably the 3 things that I would have told myself back then, which I feel like that's a little bit different than most people.
It is. but no, that's good. We all look back at different, and we normally base that on something we wish we would have done. You know, it's funny. Most people don't look back and say, hey, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. They look back and say, I wish I'd have done this. And it's funny because I saw something on social media the other day about most people's biggest regrets are a job they didn't take, a person they didn't ask out, you know, something throughout their career that they're like, man, I wish I'd have just done that. And it's really funny. But number one, investing is smart. Great thing to do. Traveling. And my family didn't take vacations. I didn't travel until I started doing social media. And I say that. I did travel a little bit. I went to Mexico. I've done a couple of vacations. But traveling like I am now it's like, wow. There's parts of the United States I've never been to. So it's like, okay, this is pretty cool. Yeah. I thought I did. Now it's like, I want to be home and relax. But then again, I'm working, I go to work. There may be some partying, just going to throw that out there.
I don't know. I definitely don't party anymore. I'm in bed like by 8:30.
I am during the week, but if I go to an event where there's people, I'm an extrovert. So you tell me there's a party down the street and there's 100 people there, I'm going to accidentally walk in. So it is what it is. Well, Tanya, thank you. Look, I love that you're giving back. You're an instructor. I think that's phenomenal. I do love to see women in the trades. I think that we need a ton more of them. And I try to tell them all the time, girls, there's nothing y'all can't do. It's don't let a man tell you can't do that, because they don't know. They probably picture themselves, say, well, if I was a female, I don't know that I could do this. Yeah, step back and let a real female show you. So,
have you ever heard of Tradeswomen Build Nations?
Mm-hmm.
That conference is amazing. I didn't go last year because we had a family event that was scheduled in the same weekend, but the year before, it's thousands of tradeswomen that get together, and our apprentices, I think it does them a lot of good to see that amount of representation, in all kinds of trades. It's like these women are successful in what you're doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
They have set those set that path, and you can do the same exact thing plus some.
It works.
It really does. Our apprentices come back and they're like, that was great. I loved the classes. I loved seeing all these successful women in the trades. It's just mind-blowing.
Yep.
It's a great experience.
There's so many organizations out there women can get involved with that will help them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a good thing.
I will say, I think this is just my opinion, but I think it is easier for females to come up through the apprenticeship programs through the union than it is for open shop. Now, if they transition over to open shop, that's a little bit different. But just from what I've seen, I do think it's a little bit easier that way because there's a structure and there's requirements.
And there's more hands-on training.
There is more hands-on training.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that females couldn't do the work. I'm just saying it's a little more inviting than open shop is. So, and I've talked to somebody else about this before, and they said, yeah, I have a friend, she wants to get into the trades, and even though she's open shop, she's like, I told her she should go through the union and do it because she's going to get a lot more opportunities that way.
Cool.
So,
thanks for being here. This has been fun.
It has.